All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Porteous with the Inspired Messengers Network and the Soul Affiliate Alliance. And I am here today with Debra Poneman, who I just met recently, but feel like just an automatic, deep connection. So I'm really excited about our conversation today. Hello, Debra.
Hello, and it's good to be back with you in this lifetime.
Absolutely. I felt that the draw and the connection, like as soon as I heard your story. In fact, we'll start right off with that. We have a mutual friend, Andrea Isaacs. I actually literally just, you'll see the same shirt in our interview because I just did it less than an hour ago. And when she first was telling me about your work, it was because of my story about being a father and about how, fatherhood has been an issue for me since I was 12 years old. Not many boys grow up thinking about what kind of a dad they're going to be and the importance of it. And when she told me about you being such an important figure in the transformation industry and then becoming a mom and kind of having to make that switch, that's what's like, oh, I felt aligned. That was 5 years ago. So when I invited you to come to the Vision 2020 Soulful Leadership Mastermind Retreat, and you said yes, like on the first conversation, just because you felt that alignment, it just confirmed what I already had felt. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about kind of how you got started on this trail, because most people would not believe that you're even over 21, much less that you started bringing TM, the Transcendental Meditation Movement, to the United States back in the 70s. That's not possible.
Yes, I actually became went to teacher training in 1971. So it's when I just popped out of the womb and went off to training. But what's also funny, before I launch into that, is that you call her Andrea Isaacs. Of course, I call her Andy, because that bit of synchronicity is that she and I went to religious school together in the 50s and 60s. And we were troublemakers together.
I love that.
I think we got, actually, this is the truth. She and I and David Simon, who used to run the Chopra Center, unfortunately, he passed away. But David Simon was one of our partners in crime back in religious school. So
wow,
it's amazing how we've all come into this world of transformation and we're reconnecting. It's just yummy. But yeah, so it was the 60s and the early 70s. And actually, I started meditation just because it was the groovy thing to do back then. But when I noticed the profound difference that it made in my life, when things that normally would shake me, I mean, back then, like when your boyfriend leaves you, right? But that would shake you, right? Yeah. But after I meditated, it was a blip on the screen, because my nervous system was functioning differently. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to become a teacher of this, because I want everybody to, because usually what happens is that we have hurts in our nervous system. They're lodged, they're called in Sanskrit samskaras. And when something happens that bumps up against that old hurt that's still lodged in your physiology, you overreact, because you're not reacting to what's happening at the moment, but it's stimulating all the hurts from all the years that you've been alive. And when that just didn't happen anymore, I thought this is something that everybody should have. And I still believe that. I think that meditation, and a scientifically verified form of meditation like TM, or like I now teach through the Art of Living Foundation. I still teach meditation, and just through a different organization, but I still believe that it's the basis to success, and it's a basis to a happy life. But I taught meditation for many years, and then one day I realized that woman does not live by mantra alone, and I didn't have any car insurance or health insurance. Actually, I didn't even have a car to insure. But so I went from the meditation community that I was living in, and I went off to LA, because I thought that was where the money is and where I could make some money and then go back to teaching meditation. But you know the expression, we make plans and God laughs.
Yes.
God had a big laugh over thinking that I was going to go to LA to make money, because I started selling investments and I was a dismal failure. But one day I went to a lecture by somebody who was teaching the law of attraction, and this was 1980. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I want to teach. I want to teach people that the basis is to create silence through a meditation technique, and then you can create anything you want by using the power of your mind correctly, because we are all like tuning forks, and the way we think determines the way we act, and the way we act, we put out a vibration, and like attracts like. So if we're always being negative, or we're talking about how dismal our financial situation is, or how horrible the world is, we vibrate that way, and we vibrate horribleness right into our lives. Hey, it's a law. It's not the theory of attraction. It's the law of attraction. So I started teaching law of attraction back in 1980. You know, some of the people in The Secret were my students. And then long about 1988, I got pregnant. I thought I was gonna have the baby and get back to teaching around the world, because now I had a huge organization, Yes to Success. And I had reps teaching in 7 countries on 4 continents, which doesn't sound like a lot now, but that was when we communicated by snail mail and phones, that were attached to the wall and had these curly cords. So being on 4 continents and 7 countries was a big deal back then in the 80s. But what happened was, when my baby was born and I took one look at her, and I thought, well, I have to be true to what I teach. And what I teach is that if you follow your heart, you will never be led astray. You have these goals and you think you know the path to them, but really the path might not be that straight. It might be circuitous. And my circuitous path was taking 20 years off to be a full-time mom at home. But again, you know this, Mark, we were each born with talents that the Creator gave us to use. I knew that I loved speaking from the time I was a little girl, and I ran for treasurer of my 8th grade class, and I had to give a speech, and I loved it. I knew that I loved to teach, and I knew that I loved these kind of energetic, like metaphysical type of concepts that could be applied to business and into your everyday life. But so I knew that it was my dharma. That's a Sanskrit term, what you were put on earth to do. I knew I was supposed to teach. I knew I was supposed to write. I love writing. And I knew that if I followed my heart, that dharma was not going to go away. So I took the 20 years off to be a mom at home. And sure enough, when my friend Janet Attwood said to me, Debbie, when are you going to stop pretending that your kids still need you and get back on the speaking circuit? And well, you know this, Mark. The truth was that I don't know if they ever really needed me. There are wonderful kids who were raised by nannies or in daycare or by aunties or grandmas or in the foster system. So it wasn't that my kids really needed me to be home hovering, but it was that I needed them, because to me, one, I love you, mommy, was worth more than 1,000 standing ovations. But Janet was right. It was time to, I always say, I loved reading them Harry Potter to put them to sleep, and they were 18 and 21, so it was probably time not really. It was probably time to stop. But anyway, so and one of the other, I know that you probably want to jump in with a question, but I'll say one other thing, and that is that when I was ready to start speaking again, my students from 20 years before, because I had helped them when they needed a hand to lift them up, and I let them, Marci Shimoff, who is she wrote Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason and all of the books in the Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul series and Mother Soul series. She was my secretary back when I started out, and she came to one of my Yes to Success seminars and said, I want to work for you, I want to work for you. And she quit graduate school to come and work for me. But I thought she was brilliant, and I do what I always do. I gave her complete attention to hear what she had to say, even though she was just this adorable, bouncy little college student, because that's what we do if we want to be successful. we know that the person standing in front of us at any given moment is the most important person in the world. And of course, that's the way they deserve to be treated. So I listened to what she had to say, hired her. She was an incredible asset to me. And Janet Attwood, I was also one of my assistants. And she also was the first person to give Yes to Success part of my seminar. And then they both went on to be New York Times bestselling authors and teaching around the world. And when I was ready, they were ready to be there, boom, to support me. And because that's the way the world works. Like no act of kindness ever goes unrewarded. I didn't do it for that, but there I was 20 years later, and I had all of these friends who just were ready to support me in coming back into the transformational world.
I love that you share that. And it was at the very end of our first conversation that you brought this whole topic of building relationship capital. And you'll be talking a little bit about that at Vision 2020. But I want to go back to the two of the things that were really, really important to me. One was around the parenting and you're understanding the call to be a mom, that part of it was for you to be there for them, to fill them with love, to be no other replacement could have made those children who they are today. And they are the proof in the pudding. And we can talk a little bit about the proof there. But the idea that they are also your teachers, that they were, that there was no better teacher that you could have for those 20 years. You could go sit and you've sat lots with many, many gurus in India, and all over the world, but that you're open to receive that guidance directly from source through your children, to me was just deeply touching.
And to this day, they're still my two gurus. Absolutely. I mean, again, I have been with the greatest living gurus, and I just learn more from them than from anybody. Just recently, there's a science of an arm of astrology called astrocartography. And what it is, this is going to be about my kids, bear with me. What it is that at the time that you're born, the stars are in a certain position. And I think that astrology is actually scientifically provable. And I mean, I'm not one of these people that doesn't go to the bathroom unless my stars are aligned. I mean, you could take it too far. But I do believe that there are trends and tendencies in your life. Although another aside is that one of my current teachers, Sri Ravi Shankar, not the musician, but the founder of Art of Living, he says, even if you're born with quote unquote not great stars, he said there is no astrological configuration that enough sadhana, which is your spiritual practices, and enough seva, which is selfless giving, selfless service. There is no astrological configuration that enough sadhana and enough service cannot overcome. So don't ever think, oh, well, my Saturn is this and my Jupiter is this. Just do more spiritual practice and more selfless service. And of course, now I forgot what I was going to say because I went. Your kids. Remind me.
Yeah. You were going back to your kids.
Yes. So, yes. So,
and a certain type of astrology.
Yeah. So there's this branch of astrology where at the time that you're born, the stars will favor you living in certain areas of the planet. So in other words, if your stars are in one configuration, you'll be more blessed if you live in Chicago and less blessed if you live in LA. Or you'll be more blessed if you live in, France than if you live in India, whatever. So I have consulted astrocartographers when I was about to make a move. And my son said to me the other day, or not the other day, it was quite a while ago when I was leaving San Francisco, he said, Mom, if you didn't know that astrocartography existed, where would you live? And I went inside and I made a different decision, and it was the best decision. And that was because of him. I would be living somewhere else if it weren't for my son saying, Mom, come on. You teach people to trust their intuition. You teach people to get quiet enough to hear their inner guidance. And then he said, what if the astrocartographer was wrong? What if, his system, he finds out later that his system is off. And he said, but your system isn't off. Just go inside and ask. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I chose a different place to live. So I'm still learning from my kids to this day. But I'll tell you something else. You had said that we were going to touch a little bit on leadership. When I have employees or people that I have to lead in organizations or businesses that I run, I deal or interact with my employees much in the same way that I interacted with my children when they were young. And that is, if they came to me with a problem, I wouldn't just like pounce on them with the solution. I would go, that's an interesting problem. What do you think? And so my kids grew up being their own problem solvers. And I also didn't give them absolutes about right and wrong. You know this, my son started a business when he was 15. And it became so successful that he dropped out of high school. And people were like, oh, you let your son drop out of high school? But he came to me one day and he said, Mom, I can't sit there and learn calculus and these things that I am never going to use in all of my life when there are kids in the inner city who need me, because his business was getting scholarships for the kids in the inner city. He said, I just can't do it anymore. He said, the kids need me. And I said, I'm not going to get an argument from me. And I said, you have to go. You have to follow your heart. And as you know, now he's raised over $40 million in scholarships for the kids in the inner city. And had I said, no, you must stay in school. I always say, you're a bright kid. You're an insightful kid. You're in tune. And you follow your heart. And if it's a wrong decision, he could always course correct. I mean, he was only, 17 at the time. He has a long life to course correct. But when we give people the answers, then they don't exercise that muscle of their own intuition. And I never said to my kids, ever, you're stupid, you're this, you're that. I never say that to my employees, but I always look for moments where I could praise them, that I could tell them how valuable they are, how brilliant they are, how profound their ideas are, because that's like, giving fuel to that fire of passion.
Absolutely. There's so much there to chew on. The idea of guidance and the inner guidance is a big piece of it. So I want to come back to that, but first acknowledging the pudding, because we talked about the kids are the proof in the pudding, and seeing what your children have accomplished is definitely, and it's not just about all the good that they've done in the world, but who they're being at any moment, and that you were an example for that you were an example for following your own inner guidance so strongly that they can now reinforce that in you. So when they see it, that they can show that as well. And that the idea of us as parents, we want to protect our children, but that if we can overprotect them, it doesn't do them, it harms them more than good. To teach them to look for that own inner guidance themselves, I just think that it's so powerful and profound.
And the other thing is that concept of your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. That applies more to us and our kids, but also the people who we lead in our businesses. When they see us teaching one thing and living something completely different, ooh, ouch, 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 ouch. Kids, employees. I'll tell you another very quick story about my son. I was teaching I have a mentoring program I don't do this anymore, but it's just where there were 10 people in my mentoring program. And the last retreat was in Chicago. So Daniel came and joined us for lunch, and they're asking him all kinds of questions. I don't know if I told you this, but it was actually the most fulfilling moment of my entire life. I figured, okay, I could die now and I will have been fulfilled. But somebody said to my son, wow, it must have been really amazing growing up with your mom, but was she always quoting success principles from Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Florence Shinn and Stephen Covey? And he thought about it for a second, and because he's so successful now, he also is, has his own athlete management firm, and he's an Emmy nominated filmmaker and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, they said to him, your mother must have been quoting all of those from all of those transformational leaders, and that must be why you're so successful. And he thought about it for a second. He said, I can't remember one time in my entire life that my mom quoted from any of those people to me. But what I did was I watched how my mom and my dad, how they lived their lives. And I thought, okay, that's it. I could die right now and be happy. And he also had a wonderful, wonderful dad too, who just, Fred and I are not together anymore, but we're still really, really close friends. And he's good people.
Well, you're talking about relationships, and earlier you were talking about all of the relationship capital you had built. And you shared a little bit about your son's story, and we'll talk about that more at the live event. But
yes,
tell us just a little bit about how did building relationship capital come to you? Because this is kind of what I've been doing innately over the last 7 years of my business, and it's really now just starting to be very, very apparent in my life that what I've been doing is exactly that.
Yeah.
So how did now it's an actual conversation that you have, and I just want to know how you became aware of that. That's what you're doing, or did you become aware it was just always a natural?
No, actually, I never did it consciously, but I read a lot in the literature. When I decided that I wanted to teach these principles of how to create true and lasting success, I did study the great masters of success. I studied Napoleon Hill. I studied Wallace Wattles and Catherine Ponder and Florence Shinn and Earl Nightingale, all of these old standards of transformation and living a really good life. And there was a recurring theme, and that is about treating everybody as the most important person in the world. Some people would say that the person in front of you is just God in human form. True. The person in front of you is the most important person in the world because to them they are. Each of us is the most important person in our own world, so they deserve to be treated that way. So a lot of these great masters said that, but I think I just knew that innately. But I also, this is something I haven't talked about in forever, but I don't even know. It just came to me that I'm supposed to tell you this. But I actually had an experience when I was in 8th grade. And the experience was I had it was kind of like a spiritual awakening in 8th grade, out on the playground, no less. But I'll tell you what happened. I was in a group, we were like the cool girls. Okay. And when you're one of the cool girls, it's also kind of an unwritten rule that you also have to be a mean girl. But I never liked being a mean girl. It just wasn't in my nature. I think that was from my parents. But I remember one day.
Oh no. Is that me or you?
Another girl, let's just say her name is Claire. Okay. So they bring over Claire. And to our picnic table that we sat on, it was our picnic table, and said to Claire, we've decided that we want to invite you to be in our club. And you would have thought that we had just told Claire that every dream of hers had come true. And her face just lit up. I remember it to this day. And as soon as her face lit up, these two girls said, "Oh, come on, we're just kidding. We'd never let you be in our club." And I remember seeing the joy like just drain out of this girl. And I had this experience where I saw that her pain radiated out and affected every corner of creation. I saw a hologram. I didn't know it was a hologram, but I saw her at the center and the whole world around her. And I realized that each of our individual pain does affect everything in creation, but I also saw that her pain went back. It was like a darkness went back into these two girls who caused it and spread out and filled their physiology. I mean, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't talk about it actually again until I shared it with one of my spiritual teachers like 10 years later. Wow. Because this particular spiritual teacher told me to teach success and happiness to the world. And I conveyed that experience. It was my first, because he said, because the more people you help to become happy, the more you're contributing to the world. Mm. And I told him that experience, and he verified that is the truth. That when you cause pain to another, you're not just causing pain to them, but you're causing pain to the entire creation. And the darkness of it is going to come back and affect you. So that's always been somewhere in my psyche, because it was a very, very profound experience for a 13-year-old. But I remember making a vow to myself at that moment on the playground, sitting on the picnic table, that I will never consciously cause another person pain. And you know, when you're standing in a group and you're telling somebody something that's really important to you, and they're looking around to see if there's somebody more important to talk to, you're causing that person pain. And also, you think you're the general manager of the universe, as my friend Janet Attwood would say. You're not. But when you do good by giving somebody your full attention, listening to them, nobody's more important at that moment. There's something in Kabbalah that says, which is the Jewish mystical text, that when you do God's work on earth, God will take care of whatever you need taken care of. If you have something that's not going right in your life, but you're busy doing God's work by loving somebody, giving them your full attention, then God will say, "Oh, Mark is doing my work. I'll go take care of Mark's problems."
And again, that comes back to the inner guidance of knowing where to be in front of, because wherever you're in front of, as Buddha used to say, or wrote, where, if you ever wonder where you're supposed to be, just look at your feet. So whoever it is that's in front of you is the right person, as long as you're, following your inner guidance.
Yes, yes.
And so you went into this 20-year sabbatical of switching your job to being a mom and all that entails. And again, I get so much joy from hearing that. And then you were called back out. So it kind of reminds me of the hero's journey, in that it's not a circle, it's a spiral. You're coming out in a different place. We're expanding. You went back, and we were working with Marci and creating the Year of Miracles. And now you're stepping back into the Yes for Success and all of your work. Tell us a little bit about, and again, we were talking about leadership, but you are one of those leaders in the world. What is showing up for your vision in 2020 and beyond? Like, what do you see happening for yourself and for the world?
Well, I can only live my life and one day at a time, and follow the breadcrumbs to doing what's in integrity for me. Like coming to your event. People invite me to events all the time, right? And I'm sure they do for your listeners and for you. And, we only have so many hours in a day, but there's something about you that I just loved. And I thought, you have such gorgeous energy. Whatever this man has created, I want to go to. So what I do, and how I'm going to create my 2020 and beyond, is just continue to move slowly enough so that I could hear my intuition speaking, but quickly enough so that I can take action to contribute to the world. So I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm creating a program with a friend of mine who's a Harvard trained brain researcher, and we're going to be doing a program on anti-aging. It's called Your Brain for Your Brain. It's called and Your Body, Your Brain, Your Body, Your Future. And we're very, very excited about that. We're taking people on another thing I'm doing is we're taking people on a journey to India. And I have a lot of things that are coming up, but I used to be running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and then I'd be moving so fast that I would miss opportunities. And also I would think I could only do that. I know what to do. But when you move slowly, then you can hear more the impulses that nature is saying, maybe course correct a little bit here. And maybe don't do business with that person. Another thing I used to do is I hated disappointing people. But I realized in my grown-up years that when you do what's best for yourself, it will always be what's best for everybody else, but only 100% of the time. I mean, when I left your Year of Miracles, I was with Marci for 5 years, and then my intuition said, it's up. And I love your Year of Miracles, and it's a fabulous program, and it's continuing to be a fabulous program. And I remember I went to Marci, she was so cute. She goes, no, Deb, you can't leave. Nobody could do this with me but you. I mean, because we were so close and we created this amazing program. And I said, Mars, remember, if you do what's best for yourself, it will always be what's best for everyone else. And it's best for me to move on. No, it's not best for you to move on. We laugh about it now, but hey, I recognize the sentiment. But then when she got quiet enough, she realized it's a principle that we do teach in your Year of Miracles, and a principle that we have to live by. So, but I'm a leaper. I don't believe like leap and the net will appear. I believe, set some stuff up for yourself before, especially if you have people to support, and then take a leap. Don't hang on after your intuition says, okay, leap time, come on. I mean, I gave up my career, went to be home with the kids, and everyone said, you have gone out of your mind. And I said, absolutely, guilty, out of my mind, right into my heart. My heart said, stay home with the kids. That, my Dharma is speaking, it'll be there later. And same thing with when I left your Year of Miracles. It would have been out of integrity if I stayed, because it was done for me. The energy wasn't there anymore for me. It wasn't not the energy for your Year of Miracles, but the energy for me to be a part of it wasn't there anymore. If I would have stayed, it wouldn't have been better for anybody. And you know what? Now it's the second year without me, and it's blossoming and it's growing, and Dr. Sue Morter took my place, and the wonderful Lisa Gard took my place for some other things, and we have staff who took my place for some other things, and it's exploding. But can I just tell one more story, and then
Sure.
And I know that our time is up, but I remember there was this one time when I had left teaching Yes to Success in order to be home with the kids. And one day I was home, and my daughter was about maybe 4.5 and my son was maybe 2. He was still in diapers, so they were very little. And it was one of those days, these days, those days where I couldn't make them happy. It was like nothing I could do to make them happy. So I decided I'm putting them in front of the TV. That's it. I usually didn't resort to that, but this was the TV day. Okay. So I put them in front of the TV. My daughter wanted to watch Barney, and she's like, Wheels. She had a speech impediment. She couldn't say her words. Wheels, Bounty, Wheels, Bounty. I said, I'm getting you, Bounty. Just be patient. So I did a channel check. And as I was turning, yes, there was a dial. As I was turning the dial, I see Oprah, and on Oprah was one of my students. And my student was doing a demonstration for Oprah He had a best-selling book that had just come out, doing a demonstration for Oprah on the power of the mind using a technique that he had learned in one of my seminars. Great, fine. When I left Yes to Success to be a mom at home, I said to my students, take everything, teach it. I don't care. You don't even have to give me credit. The world needs it. Okay. So, however, here he was on Oprah. And you know part of the story that when I left, I was about to have my own daytime TV talk show. You know that. And Janet actually was my assistant when I was negotiating with the producer. She was my scribe. And I also had my Yes to Success book in the hands of a major New York publisher. So here he is on TV with a best-selling book. And here I am with these two whiny kids on the couch. And I remember standing in front of the TV and watching this. And at that moment, I thought, okay, I have destroyed my life. I absolutely was convinced I had ruined my life. I had made the wrong decision. And I'm standing in front of the TV and I'm like sobbing. And the only thing that drew me out of that self-imposed stupor was that my daughter, true story, she goes, Mommy, and I go, yes, honey. She goes, I think you forgot our popsicles. Yes, honey, I did forget your popsicles. Anyway, so I found Bonnie and I went into the kitchen and I was mad at God. And I am pouring that orange juice into those molds because I was making them their orange juice popsicles. And I'm pouring that orange, and I'm saying, how could you have done this to me? I'm talking to the God of my understanding. That was supposed to be me. I have the book. I have the TV show. And, you know, what's going on here? And then this voice said to me, remember the book. And it wasn't a voice, you know, like Charlton Heston and, you know, the 10 Commandments, Deborah, remember the book. You know, it's just like a little impulse, like the voice. And I said, yes, I remember the book. That was supposed to be my book. And then this voice said, no, not that book. And I remembered a book that I had read many years before about a person who had died. They were dead for several minutes and then came back and shared their experience. And what this man said, and he had never done a spiritual thing in his life, he said that he went through the tunnel, the dark tunnel, and at the end there was a being of light. And the being of light welcomed him and said, would you like to see a movie of the highlights of your life? And the man said, yes, I would. And it was a very short movie. It just showed him showing his son how to swing a baseball bat and dancing with his daughter at her wedding, but there wasn't much else on it. And then he said to the being of light, hey, what about the time I brought my company public? And what about the time that it started being, you know, that I opened up the factories in Japan? And what about this? And the being of light said, all those moments glorified you. And then the being of light said, would you like to see the life of another person who just passed at the same time as you? And the man, kind of indignant even in heaven, said, yes, I would. And he explains that these curtains of golden light parted, and they're sitting on like a throne of golden light surrounded by a host of angels, was the woman who used to clean his house. And so this being of light showed the man the movie reel of the highlights of this woman's life, and it showed her carrying a pot of soup to a sick friend, and it showed her holding her mother's hand as her mother was making her transition, and it showed her holding and comforting a grieving child, and it showed her cheering at the baseball games for the kids whose parents couldn't be there because they had to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put food on the table. And it showed her just going to church and hugging everyone up and saying, how you doing today? And then the being of light turned to the man and said, when you get here, you find out that the only thing that matters when you're on earth is how much knowledge you gain and how much love you give. And with that, I put the popsicles into the freezer and just went in and sat and watched Barney with my kids.
Wow. That is such a beautiful story of being. And I love the vulnerability, because I think a lot of times people think, oh, you gave that up. But you know, you got wonderfully rewarded, and later in life, you got to come back and, you know, do everything again, to be human, and to curse you following your own inner guidance. That, again, that's such a core part of this event, is the idea of everything coming from your inner guidance, and to be able to follow that and trust that, even if it doesn't always look like it's working out.
Yeah, and you know that old saying that when you're in your deathbed, you're not going to say, yes, I lived a great life, I made a lot of money. I mean, I have a lot of friends who make a lot of money, and they have a lot of fame and a lot of recognition, and they are empty inside, and they are they're filled with fear. That, I mean, not all my friends, but many. And hey, but there's never a time like the present to turn that around and live from your soul and from your intuition. And that's why I love the work that you do, because that's what you support entrepreneurs in doing. So thank you for your work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for seeing that. And I definitely feel so much alignment. I'm really excited to play together in a very big way in 2020. I appreciate you for being able to put this time aside here, but to be able to commit to 4 days together. We're going to have just so much fun, and it's the beginning of really a whole bunch more to come.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm counting the days.
Wonderful. Well, I know it's a big soul. In fact, the intention of it originally for me was a soul family reunion, and being able to recognize that, and people showing up. That was one last thing I wanted to share, was that you are very good at you're a master at not only the law of attraction, but being able to tap into your inner guidance. I know I've had people who say, oh, I already do that. You know, I don't need to come there to learn it. This isn't about somebody standing at the front of the stage saying, this is how to do it. This is a room full of wisdom and knowledge and heart-centered people that are all sharing your resources and being able to learn what is innovative, what is coming out. So I appreciate you for acknowledging that and being able to be just part of the wisdom that's in the room.
I always go with my intuition, and my intuition said, go.
That's all it takes. You heard the call and you responded.
Yeah. Yeah, that there in landmark education, there's this thing called already always knowing. And if you are already always knowing and think you know everything, you know, you might as well, you know, throw in the towel, because there is so much to learn and so many people to learn from. And if you just listen, and that's how we grow, and that's how we move towards our greatest life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, again, I know that several of your friends are going to be there as well, so it'll be a little bit of an actual reunion. That there are so many new souls that are going to be coming to connect, and I appreciate you for showing up, and look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Bye-bye. Thank you.